You are listening to the podcast To Be Single or Not to Be by Shaanah, Montanna. A podcast where we talk about the single life, dating, and relationships so you can make a decision at the end of each episode and decide to be single or not to be. That is the final question.
Hi, guys, and welcome back to the To Be Single or Not to Be podcast, where we are here for another episode of the Running It Back series. And today we are talking about the relationship before the commitment. So, before you get to the point of someone asking you to be their woman, their girlfriend, however they want to put it, we're going to talk about what shit should look like before it gets to that point. Because if you are aware of what it should look like before the commitment, you're going to stand a better chance of knowing if you need to say yes or no, or if you should have been got the hell up out of there. So before we get there, I want to make sure you listeners know, if you are watching me on YouTube, to like, subscribe, and share. But if you are listening to me on your favorite pod platform, make sure you like this episode, you download the podcast, you subscribe, you leave a review, you send it to your mama, friend, sister, cousin, everybody. And we're going to get this party going. So at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, I talked about this topic many years ago. And I'm sure when I talked about it before, I had some different ideals than I have now, because we are living in the age of high value men and RP Kevin Samuels and women who sometimes feel like a man should give them money the day that they meet him. I mean, if you want to give me his money today, I meet him. But but we live in different times right now than from the last time that I had this conversation. So I want to say the first thing is, when it comes to before you get to the commitment, I feel that more women need to get clear about what their own personal relationship goals are. Not the goals that you see on social media, not the goals that you have attached to any previous relationship or any history. I mean, you learn from your history, but you are not trying to repeat that. But you want to be in a space where you know exactly what it is that you want and why. Because many times I've asked women, what exactly do you want in a partner? And you all know I've been guilty of it before. We say we want a man that got a job, he got a roof over his head. He treat me good 2 days a week. He give me a little money, get my nails done. I can meet his mama, and that's it. We have these really basic, great value, generic Walmart level ideals of what it looks like to be in a relationship in regards to goals, when we need to get wildly intentional about deciding what it is that we want in a partner before we even start looking for one. So, absolutely, before the commitment comes up. So, at the end of the day, you should be breaking this down. And I cannot say it enough. And I got to keep saying it again until people get it, that you need to know, physically, of course. I don't feel like in this day and age you should be dating nobody that you only want to look at them with one eye open, or you want to get a bad prescription in your glasses so you can't see them clearly. So, whether it comes to things that people consider superficial or serious things. So, your physical attraction, what are you looking for in a partner? Your mental and emotional attraction, what are you looking for in a partner? When it comes to mental health and wellness, their emotional availability, their emotional capacity. When it comes down to communication, what are you looking for in a partner? When it comes to finances, what are you looking for in a partner? When it comes to spirituality, what are you looking for in a partner? You're looking for somebody that you really can come to in prayer, or you look for somebody who hasn't prayed since he went to church in 8th grade and had to say his Easter speech. I don't even think people still kids do kids still have Easter programs these days? I don't even know if that still exists. But at the end of the day, you need to get really clear about those things, occupationally. What does the person do for a living? Because those things matter as well. So until we get really clear about what our relationship goals are before we get into a relationship, we are going to continue to struggle in that area. Because if you aren't able to sit down and really reflect on what it is that you want in a relationship before it happens, if somebody else shows up and they tell you what they want and you aren't sure what you want, many times you turn into what I like to call a transformer, and you begin to transform into this woman that the person says they wanted, because you didn't know exactly what you wanted. So it's easier for you to just follow direction. And sometimes you end up, it's the blind leading the blind. You follow in the direction of somebody that you really should not be in a partnership with, because you did not take the time to get clear about what it was that you wanted. And while you are single and while you are dating, this is the prime time for you to get really clear about what it is that you want in a relationship, because you have the time to do it. You have trial and error. You can go on dates, you can be courted, you can figure it out. You can talk to people, you can figure out what's good, bad, and indifferent out there that I want, that I don't want, that I don't have to compromise on, because we know that compromise is a part of relationships, but not on everything. So you need to get really clear about what it is that you want before the time comes that you have to make a decision about it. Like, I'm a person that right now, recently, a man asked me if I wanted children, and I told him that I wasn't completely against it. I always say I would have to be inspired by a man to want to have kids. And what I mean by that is that solely right now, I'm 99% sure that I don't want children because I'm just okay with not having kids for a lot of reasons I'll go into on another day. But right now, no, I'm 99% okay with not having children. But I do feel that if I got in the right relationship with a partner who wants children and who wants to be hands on and wants to be a full time parent, whether we stay together or not. Those are just a few of the many things that may inspire me to want to have a child. And so that person went into a conversation around, I think we need kids for legacy purposes and things of that nature. And I told him that that's another conversation for another day because I do feel like you can leave a legacy in this world without having kids attached to it because we all know we can have a legacy. Like I can say, I want my world's legacy to be this one thing, and I can have a child that does not believe in that, that wants to go another direction. And I can't force them to uphold this same legacy that I have. So I don't attach legacy necessarily to children. Yes, you can leave a legacy through your kids. No doubt about that. There's no question there. But I do know that people who don't have children can also leave a legacy. But he was saying it in a way like, if I don't have kids, I can't leave a legacy. So while that wasn't a conversation we went into right then, and it's one that I'll be open to having, that is what I mean by getting clear about what you want, because I'm getting to a place where I feel that I do need to make a decision on what it is that I want to happen, or what I want when it comes to kids, so I can be upfront with people about that. Because if I get to the point where if I do decide, if I wake up tomorrow and I'm like, I know for certain I don't want kids, when a man asks me if I want children, I can tell him no with certainty, that he cannot change my mind, that the inspiration requirement that once was is no longer. And that will allow them to know, okay, well, Shayna is or isn't a candidate because she knows that she doesn't want children. And I do. And I know that I'm not going to convince her. But the only way that you get to a space of making decisions like that is if you take the time to really think about those things. And having kids is one of those things that I do think about because I know that I am going to meet people that want children. And I just want to be able to be clear on my path of dating as much as I can. I know everything is not 100%, but as much as I can to lead with certain stuff because kids is like a big thing. It's a big deal for some people. And I want to be in a space where I could tell, said person, like, yeah, I'm game. Let's do it. If, we get to that point, or no, that's not going to happen. So, move around. So the next thing, is just in that, we just have to understand that in being a single woman right now, you want to be able to reflect on what you want in a relationship, unattached to what somebody else wants and unattached to a partner before they get there. So you don't walk into something already compromising, because as I mentioned before, compromise is going to be a part of any relationship, but you don't want to immediately begin compromising just because you are not clear about what it is that you want in your next relationship. And then the next thing is going to be acknowledging that when you get clear about what you want in your next relationship, when you start to date and you start to meet people, being able to understand the significance of effectively communicating what it is that you want in your partnership, but also being able to effectively communicate in a way where you can hear others out, hear what they want, so you all can see, through conversation, through communication, through clear communication, through healthy communication, through consistent communication, through communication early and often upfront. What is it that you want? What is it that I want? Is this a good match? Is this not? Are there things that, if we have things that don't necessarily match, are these things that are understandable that they may not match, but we can eventually come and get on one accord with things, because you're not going to date a mirror of yourself in most instances. You're not dating yourself. You're dating somebody else. So you want to be able to come to the table with the person and hear them out just like you want them to hear you out, but also be able to understand that we're going to communicate what we both want. We're going to see if what we both desire aligns. And if it does, great. We can see if this is something we can move forward in. But at the end of the day, you can't allow any kind of desperation or any kind of loneliness or any kind of desires that you have for the end goal of being married or being in a relationship to be what is pushing you forward to possibly land in something that's not meant for you in the first place. And that goes right into the next thing I want to talk about, which is going to be establishing boundaries. And I think that it's essential that when it comes to the dating scene, before you get into a committed relationship of any kind, you have to really be clear, super clear, wildly clear, very intentional about what it is that your boundaries are and what your non negotiables are as well. Because I think at the foundation, there are some things that I feel when it comes to non-negotiable should be there. In past relationships, I have not had the joy of experiencing this, so I know they are things that I absolutely need, and I can't function in a relationship without them. And I think they are the foundation of relationships. So when it comes to certain non-negotiables that should be, that you have to come up with your own non-negotiables, but things that I think you should think about, I encourage you to think about are going to be, grace, are going to be forgiveness, are going to be understanding, are going to be kindness, are going to be accountability, are going to be self awareness, are going to be ownership, things of that nature. Those are things that at the core of like a human being. Those are the kind of humans that I want to deal with, but we can't always, I can't put everybody on a plate that I want to deal with and have them act in a certain way. But at the end of the day, I know I have a foundation for my non negotiables, and those are things that stop negotiating your non-negotiables. Like you say that you want a certain thing in a partner, and you say that there are certain things that you are just not going to stand for. And then you get with somebody who does not feel the same way. And then you start doing the bending. You start transforming. You start negotiating your non-negotiables. And then, as I always say, you try to figure out a year later how you got in this bullshit. You signed up for the bullshit. So you want to be aware of that. Your non-negotiables are just that. They are not negotiable. Like I've definitely dealt with somebody that asked me what my non-negotiables were. And when I named them literally right after I said certain things, this person started to push back and ask me like, why? No, no, no. Like these are my non-negotiables. And if you cannot comply with my non-negotiables, then this just is not a good fit. And we're going to get into bad partner selection in just a minute. But if you can't comply with what my non-negotiables are, just like if I can't comply with yours, this is not a good fit. You shouldn't be of the notion of trying to change somebody's mind on their non-negotiables. Like, why would you do that? Doesn't that sound crazy? Like you tell me that you want to be with somebody who is self-aware, and you meet a motherfucker that can't spell self-aware. And all of a sudden, you're like, well, self-awareness ain't that important. Bitch, you just said that self-awareness was number one on your list. Because but now this person that looked like your type physically, that's the only thing they checked off your list. Now all of a sudden the non-negotiables don't matter. Make it make sense. It don't. And then that goes back to we'll get to establishing boundaries. You have to be able to put, baby, you have to be able to have a clear and definitive line of what your boundaries are, because there are a lot of people out there that are habitual line steppers. And if you are not able to draw a line in the sand, put some chalk, put some marker, permanent marker, put it down and let people know if you cross this line, this shit is curtains, then what are we doing? So I think it's ultimately so important that you're able to but also this goes back to healthy communication, being able to express exactly what those boundaries are, examples of them, because some things we know going into a situation like these are my boundaries, don't cross these lines. And some things you learn as you go because we're all adults, we're all growing, we're all learning, we're all changing. So certain things you may not even know it's a trigger, or you may not know that it's something that needs to be a boundary until you run into it. But the other side of it is that if you don't, in a healthy way, communicate what your boundaries are. If somebody does something, you can't be of the mindset, I'm about to cut them off. They crossing my boundaries. Well, you never told them what the boundary was. And then they crossed it and now you mad. That means you aren't communicating in a healthy way. So at the end of the day, you have to know what are your boundaries? What are certain things you don't compromise on? Like, I would say a boundary for me, and I think this may be a combination of a boundary and a non-negotiable, is that I cannot live with anyone and they cannot live with me until we are engaged to be married. I have unfortunately fell victim of allowing niggas to live with me. Y'all heard me. I've let niggas live with me. And it just did not turn out to be great situations. I was young and dumb, never would do it again. But I recognize the place I'm where I am in my life right now. One, why would a man want to move in with me? He's homeless. Most times, the reason a man want to move in with you is because he's homeless. But that's another conversation for another day. So if he wants to move in with me, what he got going on that he want to come move over here? And if I was a woman that was okay with moving in with people that he wouldn't want me to move in with him as the leader of the household, the dynamic is already broken right there. So why would you want to live with me? It's some shit in the game right there. You should want me to live with you as the leader of the household if I was going to do that. But at the end of the day, until you ask me to be your wife, at that point we can determine. Like, say I had the bigger home and we were going to move in with me temporarily, but we know that like in our process of being engaged and getting married, we are about to buy a larger home or we're just going to buy a home together. Like there may be circumstances once engaged as to why, somebody could find a variable in there why a man may move in with you and it doesn't come back to homelessness. But typically, in most instances, if you're talking about just a dating situation, we're dating. I'm not moving in with you. You not moving in with me. You gonna stay over there. I'm gonna stay over here. So that is a boundary, a hard stop of mine. No need for us to cohabitate until we are engaged. And once we get engaged, we will talk about what that looks like. Do I move into your home? Do we go buy a new home together? What is that going to look like? But then that trickles down to say, making sure that at the foundation of who you're dealing with, and we about to get into partner selection, that you are only dealing with people who, are of the financial or credit standing for you all to be able to go forward and get a home together if that is what you both want. So again, establishing boundaries and having non-negotiable. So I think, yeah, that's one that kind of goes together. My boundary and non-negotiable. You can't live with me because I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. Don't want it again. You can't come stay over here. And I don't want to stay over there. So basic necessities, basic needs. We just not getting involved with that. But ultimately, once you are able to say, okay, this is a boundary or this is a non-negotiable and communicate that in a healthy way, and the other person is able to reciprocate and do the same, and you all have an understanding of like, we don't cross these lines with each other, we respect these things with one another, we're on the same page, it definitely can lead to a more fulfilling and happy relationship if you all decide to be in a committed relationship, because those are things that you're going in already knowing. There are no surprises. You're not stumbling up on your partner all of a sudden getting tripped up over certain stuff because you hadn't talked about it. No, you know what your boundaries and your non-negotiables are. And like I said before, it's not an end all be all list, because as you learn, grow, and thrive, there are going to be other things that are going to come up on the list. But ultimately, if you have a great start in place and have a list and things to work with, that's going to be able to set you up for success. And setting you up for success also looks like making sure that you are really assessing the compatibility of the potential partner so that you do not land in a space of bad partner selection. Because I truly believe a lot of relationships that we see these days in real life and online, the reason that they don't work is because of bad partner selection. And I'm not going to even say unfortunately, I've been guilty of that, choosing people when I was younger based off of what they look like, or it was like they were there for a good time and not a long time. I was not looking at the things I talked about in the beginning of this episode. How stable were they? Did they have their basic needs met? How financially stable were they? Were they able to take care of themselves, let alone, like, I ain't even talking about me, can you take care of yourself? What is your spiritual life like? Because that's important to me. What is your wellness like? You all know, if you've listened to me enough, that wellness is important. Do you work out? Do you eat right? Do you care about your body? Like, what do you do for fun? Do you have friends outside of me? What are your outlets? What brings you joy? What are your passions? What are your hobbies? Like, what does your life look like? What is your family background? Who raised you? Was it wolves, or did your mammy raise? Like, who raised you? So you have to be able to look at the whole picture and assess, really, are you compatible? Because a lot of times I say it's not that you have to be in a relationship with somebody or potentially get into a relationship with somebody and your life has to look exactly alike. But I do believe that if you are partnered with somebody, the foundation of who you are, what you believe, your morals, your character, your integrity, a lot of that it has to be on the same page in order for you to have a successful relationship. And before you commit to anything, you need to pay attention to that, because if you are dealing with somebody like, I'm a family person. I come from a big family, and I lean on my family a lot because I don't have children. So I have my mom and my siblings and cousins and my nieces and nephews, and I have all those, and we're always getting together to do something. If you have somebody that, you trying to date somebody that hates family time because he dealt with, maybe it was some trauma or some things there, but for whatever reason, he don't with his family and he ain't trying to mess with yours. Are you gonna just now disappear from your family because you decide to date somebody that don't believe in family time? Say you're a person that loves to travel. I met somebody once upon a time that told me that he really did not enjoy traveling. Other than maybe going somewhere for a weekend, coming right back from maybe like a wedding, or to celebrate somebody's birthday or something. He didn't like long trips. And I'm a person. I feel like the older I get, the longer the trip need to be. I'm trying to be gone for like 2 weeks. This a person that want to be gone for 2 days, but you got to communicate that. And I know that there will be some women that would get with this man and feel like, well, We going to Jamaica for 7 days and he gonna be fine with it. I'ma change him. No, then you get to Jamaica and on day three, you ready to karate chop him in the throat because he's sitting over there snarled up, looking like a prisoner of war because he didn't want to be there in the first place, and you forced him to come, and now you mad. But that was a bad choice for you to get with somebody. And mind you, I'm naming things that just off the top of my head, thinking about, family. When I think about travel, you think about somebody that, you like to save money. They like to blow money. They got a gambling habit. But secretly, they got a gambling habit, or they got to take care of their family members so they can't save money. You got to look at the whole picture of a person and understand, are we really compatible? Does your life look like mine? Do you move like I move? Just like that. Like, do you operate in the world how I operate? What is family life like for you? What is your friend life like for you? What is your wellness life like? What is your travel life like? What is your leisure life like? What is your health like? Like, you can go down the line, and this may sound like a lot because it is a lot. Because if you don't take it seriously on the front end, you're going to pay on the back end if you commit to some bullshit that you shouldn't have. And it's a lot because it's your life. Ultimately, I tell people the reason I'm not with the fuck around when it comes to relationships anymore is because you are ultimately playing with my life. Because if I'm choosing to, at this point, to allow myself, I'm gonna reverse it. If I'm going to allow myself to say, yes, I'm going to be your woman, I'm going to be in a relationship with you, that is a big part of my life. So if you decide that you want to play in my face, you are playing with my life. And nobody gets to play with my life and think that it's okay, in the way that we can try to avoid it, because we know some people, I'm not a clinician, so I'm not going to diagnose anybody, but some people sometimes can do a really good job at hiding who they really are. So I'm not talking about those rare cases where you did your due diligence and then you wound up dating Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm talking about the people that you really, are not doing your due diligence. And then you wind up in a relationship with somebody and you're trying to figure out, how did you wind up in purgatory? You wound up there because you did not take the time to do your due diligence before you decided to commit to this person for a lot of reasons. I get it. I get it. I get it. Sometimes you can get lonely, like Janet. Sometimes you can just feel like, I just want some companionship. Sometimes you just feel like, damn, I want to watch a movie with somebody. Sometimes you just feel like, I just want somebody around. And I get, you go through those moments and those waves, but you can't let those moments and waves allow you to make a terrible decision, like deciding to commit to somebody that you are not compatible with, and make a bad partner selection choice that could end up being a life choice, because we know you could wind up with a child and then you really connected for a long forever. It don't stop when you 18, you connected to this person. Or it's a lot of other things other than children that can happen. So it's just all about assessing and being serious about if you're compatible with the person. But also, we have to tap out of it. I think when it comes to really assessing compatibility and not landing in a position where it is bad partner selection, we got to stop being lazy. If we being real with ourselves, because it takes a lot of work to really sit down and assess a situation in all those categories you have to look at, and really assess them to get clear about like what you want, what you don't want, what your boundaries are, what your non-negotiables are, what your values are, what your interests are, getting to, know that person, going on dates, getting to know their friends, getting to know their family, doing the leg work, which can be fun. They say, relationships can be hard work, but it can be fun work. But it is work and it is energy and it's worth it. But you have to put it in, because too many times we just sign up prematurely to be in a committed relationship with someone because we hung out with them. The dopamine hits feel good in the beginning. We sign up to do life with people in the honeymoon phase when we need to damn near go through all four seasons with a person. They say you need to travel with a person, go to church with a person, do a road trip with a person, be snowed in, whatever. You need to go through a lot of different life events to see the person that you're getting. And we don't take the time to go through that because it's hard work. And you all know we live in a microwave society where everybody wants everything right now. And if you really want the love that you say you desire, you can't live like that. Like that's not the way to go. So you have to be sure that you are doing the work on the front end so you don't get hell on the back end. And another thing I want to highlight is just making sure that when it comes to the relationships that you are in, that you pay attention to nurturing your existing connections before the commitment, meaning that we got to stop getting in relationships and forgetting that we got friends. We got to stop getting in relationships and throwing our friends to the wayside. And then when we going through something with our nigga, then we want to tap back in with our friends because we need them. Now, good friends, we gonna still be here. And we understand that when you get in relationships, of course your time changes. You now have to divide your time more between your relationship, your friendship, your job, different things that you have going on. At our age group, we get it, we get it, we get it. Your relationship is going to take precedent over a lot of things. But just make sure you don't throw your friends completely in the trash can because you're going to need them again. But something else I want you to pay attention to is when you are starting to get to know a person, pay attention to who they have as outlets. When it comes to guys, pay attention to like, do they have friends? Do they have a best friend? Have you ever heard them talk about this best friend? Have you ever met this best friend? Have you ever seen this best friend? What do they do for fun? What are their hobbies? What are their interests? Like, what does that person have going on outside of that connection that they have with you? Because sometimes we end up getting into the entanglement of a situation with a person where we become their end all be all. Because while we may have friends, we may have connections, we may have hobbies, we may have things going on. If they don't, many times they make us their world. And then we just fall right into it. And at the end of the day, they don't have friends, they don't have plans, they don't have anything to cancel, stuff of that nature. But we start canceling brunch on our friends, changing our plans, can't go out. They in a bad mood. We got to stay home with them because we've allowed ourselves to become their end all be all. And you shouldn't be anybody's everything in that sense. And I think it's so important that you pay attention to what you pay attention to who that person has as their community. Because I think it's very important for men to have community. And I'm not a man, so I can't say that there aren't enough communities out there, but I can say that I do know women that have experienced being in relationships with men where they did not have community. They didn't have outlets. They didn't have anybody to talk to. Of course, we should be going to God first. That's who we should be talking to. But also, we want to talk to people here on earth as well. And I think that I'm not going to say always, that may be a pink flag, sometimes a red flag if you're dealing with somebody that doesn't have friends, doesn't have any hobbies outside of you, doesn't have any interests outside of you, that the only relationship they have is the romantic relationship with you and they make you their end all be all. And that may sound cute in the beginning, but when shit start to go left, it's not going to sound cute. And if they make you their end all be all, that's when things start to get really crazy, when stuff may start to go left and you can't even function with your friends and do the things that you want to do because you have to be so focused and worried about them because they done made it where they ain't got nobody but you. And of course, as women, our nurturing nature, our emotional nature, we want to be there for the person, but that's not how we should be existing in the world. It's important to make sure that while we have a network of support, that we are dealing with men who have their own network and community of support. And I think it's important that we start paying more attention to that. Like, it's the same for me when I meet women like that are of the mindset that say, like, I don't deal with other women. I always wonder why. And I think I have an episode out on that. I always wonder why. What triggered that? But if you meet a man and he's like, man, I don't mess with nobody, like not your daddy, not your brother, you got a cousin, you got a dog, you got no, you don't mess with nobody. I don't mess with nobody. I don't mess with nobody. You don't mess with nobody. Yeah, no. Nah. And that may be, I don't know if that's on my non-negotiable list. I may need to add it. I got to think about that one, but you got to pay attention to stuff like that. So at the end of the day, I think when it comes down to it, ladies and gentlemen, ladies, I think when it comes down to it, and we are trying to determine what it looks like for us to figure out what we need to do before the commitment, you need to get clear about what your relationship goals are and don't take the lazy route. Take the time, pull out your Shannon Montana journal, get you a relationship journal, make one of the journals your relationship journal, and really write out what your relationship goals are. And you can go back and add to it and change as much as you need to. You need to make sure that you have established what your boundaries and what your non-negotiables are so that it's no gray area around that and that you are able to properly, communicate that to whoever need be. The next thing is going to be making sure that you are really assessing the compatibility of the person that you are dealing with, because I'm telling you, I think that's a lot of BS that we deal with in relationships. Like, we just dealing with motherfuckers that we ain't compatible with. So you got to get clear about that and stop having bad partner selection. And then the last piece is going to be just making sure that you are nurturing your own existing connections, but making sure that the person that you are potentially going to partner with, that they have their own connections outside of you as well. Men need to have friends too. I ain't saying they got to be going to brunch on Saturday, drinking mimosas like we are, but They need that guy time. They need to be doing something. They need friends outside of that video game they playing. That's a non-negotiable for me. I don't date men that play video games a lot. Like everybody got their own outlet. You know, if you play it here and there, but if you like a gamer, nah. That's a, so no for me, dog. So ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you tap in with those items before you decide to commit to anybody. And I think that overall, commitment is a big deal, especially once you get like 35 plus. I just want the world of women to do better with the decisions that we are making when it comes to love, dating, and relationships. And if we listen to the things that we just talked about in this episode before the commitment, I absolutely know that you will be equipped to do so. So make sure that you share this episode with a friend, send it to somebody who needs it. Make sure you leave me a review on your favorite podcast platform. And I'll see you back here for the next episode of the To Be Single or Not to Be podcast. And it feels so good to be back. Signing off, yours truly, Shaanah Montana.